Hi, you guys. Finally, can you hear me? Are we hooked in? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, you guys. We had a little bit of technical issues. That's just the way it is sometimes, but thanks for hanging in there. Still having a little bit of camera problems, but you can see what I'm doing. That's the most important part. My face is not important, thank God. So today, you guys, we're going to be doing kind of a basic Doll 101 class. And we've had a ton of requests for how to just start. And I got to tell you, every time I'm out there doing classes, I get people that say they have bought the stamps 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and they're afraid to use them. They don't know what to do. So with this whole new crop of people coming up learning about the whole paper doll world, we're going to just do a real basic class. So we're going to start with, I'm going to show you guys how to stamp, how I stamp when things aren't as sticky as they need to be. I'm going to show you what ink I use, how to cut, everything that I can possibly think of. So let's begin with the actual stamping. I brought both Prima blocks in today. One is the purple handled one that comes in 2 sizes, and then this is the older one, which just came in this one size for the original dolls. I brought in an older doll. Excuse my voice, it gets really shaky. I'm probably in my almost 100th day of getting over a whooping cough, and my voice is still really weird. So anyway, I brought little Candie, who is not sticky anymore because she's one of my favorites and I use her over and over and over and over. With the dolls, I always get asked, what kind of paper do you use for the bodies? Well, the paper pad has been discontinued, and it is in my head to make some skin tone type papers, but right now it's just in my head. It hasn't gotten out of my head, so hopefully we'll be doing that in the future. Look on the back of papers when you're in scrapbook stores. The back side of papers, most of the vintagey type companies have text or script or something in a neutral tone that can be used for the skin of the dolls. And I can tell you almost every collection that I can think of that Frank has done for Prima, there's papers that I have used for the skin. And his Christmas collection, it's funny, when I finished doing classes with Victorian Christmas this year, I ended up donating any extra pieces I had, and when I looked at some of the papers like this, he did quite a few papers, that's too shiny, with elements in the corner. Well, the middle of these papers are perfect for skin tones. So look closely at his papers, because a lot of times the back side can be used as skin, and that's what I'm going to do today. So we have Camille, and I'm going to, she's new, she's sticky, she's ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and ink her up. I use Archival Ink, and I go back and forth. Sometimes I use black, sometimes I use brown. So this is really easy with this pad or this block. And I just place her where I want to. And I press. And with the handle, it presses very even. Both of these blocks have grids, so if you are stamping on paper where it's necessary to be straight, you can use the grid. Now with Candie, she's lost her stick, so this is how I stamp. I never even use the sticky part. I'm just used to this, and I just tap the ink. I don't press hard. And I get her inked up, and I'm going to place her where I want her. And now I'm going to take and you can use either block for this. This is what I keep on my desk at home because it's just handier. Lift it up, lift her up, and I have a perfect stamp. Once in a while, and you guys, you got to remember, I stamp hundreds and hundreds of these for when I'm kidding classes. And once in a while, I might get a bad stamp where it moved, but it's not very often. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways I cut. Here's Candie already cut, and I'm going to show you a couple of other things. I know this sounds really weird, showing how people to cut something out, but there's little tricks along the way that make it easier. And normally I do color them in, but I am not with her right now. I'll do that later. So I hold the paper in my hand and I kind of move it. She is not very easy to cut out in certain places with her hair. I'm going to stand up and get a little bit closer to the camera. And of course, depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed, the areas are going to be different that are hard to cut. Where she has skin, this is my tip, I like to keep as much of that black line as possible. Where a dress is going to cover her, I cut inside of that black line because I don't want that black line showing. So where she has skin, I cut on the outside of the black line, and where she has clothes covering her up, I can cut on the inside quite a bit. Now, if she has clothes that are going to be covered up completely, like see how that dress covers that entire part of the doll? I can also go like this and not even fool with that, because it's not going to be used. I also, when I'm stamping, I can mask this off with another piece of paper so this doesn't even come out stamped. And that way I'm saving all that precious skin tone paper that is so hard to find. In cutting, I like to cut all that excess off as often as I can. Usually where I come to a stopping point, I'll cut that excess off. It's not easy to cut and look at a monitor. So where I come to a stop, I want to get rid of that. It makes the rest of the cutting so much easier. I'm not going to cut out the rest of that because I already have one cut out. So we're going to go to the insides. And a lot of newbies ask, does that come out? Yes, it should come out. Unless you don't want it to, that's totally up to you. There's many tools out there that you can use for cutting the insides. This is the Prima knife and the pad, and you can cut out the insides with this. I'm about ready for a new blade on this. And I follow the same rule where I try and get as much of this black line. I try and keep it as much as I can. My blade is a little dull, so I'm going to go over with this. This is a Fiskars tool that fits on your finger. Some people hate it. Some people love it. And I'm just going to punch that out. Let's get it on. There's some excess piece in there that I want to trim out of there. This is a little tool made by Elizabeth Crafts. It's almost like a manicure scissor. A lot of people use this tool to cut that entire inside out. I have a hard time with it, but I like to be able to trim my edges with it. It works well for that. So yes, I have 3 detail cutting tools that I use. But there's a lot out there and a lot of choices. You just need to find what's comfortable for you. Now, another little tip. The tops of their heads and their shoes have pretty sharp corners. When in cutting, because most of us aren't perfect cutters, I like to, if I get any weird sharp points, which you won't be able to see, I'll take a emery board. This I just bought in the dollar section, a little package of emery boards, and I can kind of sand down those little points, and you especially get them on the shoes because that's a really small circle space. And I can do that wherever I have weird cutting points, and it just softens those lines. So that's pretty much cutting in a nutshell. I'm going to cut, this is my bad side. I'm right-handed, so this is my bad side. And I want to show you when I get into the neck area and the hair, I'm just turning my paper. When I get to this sharp little curve in her curl, I cut off the excess, and then I cut out the rest of her hair, and then I go back and I get that little curl. And you can go in there with detail scissors if you want. I don't really need to. I have been doing this for so long that I'm used to it. And there's the hardest part to cut on her is that whole neck and hair area. One side is going to be harder than the other, depending on which hand you cut with. Okay, so then we're gonna color her in a little bit, and this is not going to be a coloring class, but I will show you some easy ways that I get a little shading in there. And any kind of alcohol marker is nice. And I will pick a side, right or left, and I'm just going to do a little bit of shading. I've used Archival ink. The ink has dried, so I'm not going to get a lot of running, although I just did because I was upside down, not seeing it well. But just a little bit of shading in her face on one side. Or I can take one of the watercolor pencils in the hair and skin tones, and I can do the same thing. I'm going to pick a right or a left side, and I'm going to just take this pencil and go down her legs. Let's do this arm. And I used kind of a brownish tone on this. Normally I use flesh tones, but this paper has a little bit of brown to it. And then I take my watercolor brush. This is the Prima brush. I squeeze out the water, and then I squeeze a lot of that wetness out of the brush because I want it to be really dry. We're working on regular paper. I don't want the paper to bubble up. I don't want that black ink to run. And I'm just blending that pencil out to create a little bit of shadow. And that will make the skin of your doll pop out on whatever you're making, whether it's a tag or a scrapbook page. And then I will take one of our ink edgers in any of the brown tones. I've used them all and they all work fine. I ink the edge of the skin. On this little girl, the one that I had cut out, I'm going to edge her hair. I'm not edging her dress because we're putting a dress over that. I didn't even use a marker or the watercolor pencils on her skin. I'm showing you what it looks like with just an inked edge. And that works too if you don't have a lot of time to do all your coloring. So in the pencil pack, there are lots of shades of brown. There's black, there's a light yellow, and then kind of a dirty blonde color for hair. I'm going to show you one of the little tricks that I use when I do hair. And I'm going to go ahead and color her hair in with kind of a reddish brown. And one of the reasons why I don't cut it's easier to color when they're not cut out. I have to go through all those edges and it's kind of lumpy. Then I'm going to take a darker brown tone, and where I have the excess paper, I'm going to lay some dark brown in there. And now I'm going to, I colored in her entire head of hair with the lighter color. And now I'm just going, ooh, that's a wet brush. I don't like it real wet. Now I'm going in, it's really hard to color upside down. I always paint their hair in the direction that you would comb your hair. I forgot her bangs, but anyway, we'll pretend they're colored in. Now I'm going to take this dark brown, and I'm using the side of my paper as like a little palette, and I'm going to add another color in here just to give her some texture. So it's more than one color. And that's basically how I will do hair on my tags. It's just a couple of colors, whether it's the light yellow and the dirty blonde color, whether it's a light brown and a dark brown. That is how I work my colors. Shoes. I'm going to show you this is a fun little trick. There is a pen on the market. It's made by Sakura and it's called a Glaze Pen. And the black, I'm just going to color this entire little shoe in. You want this pen. It's somewhat dimensional, but it dries really, really shiny and it looks like patent leather. And it comes in all different colors and it's super fun. And every time I teach classes with this, they sell out of that pen because everyone wants it for the little shoes. It's super fun. So for the clothes, we're going to stamp some clothes now. I chose a paper that's really old from Prima, but it has a lot of contrast, so I thought it would be really easy. The name of the pen is Sakura. Oh, Carrie answered you. Comes in a clear too, so you can use a marker of the color of your choice and it can go over it. I stamped and I cut out a dress out of the floral side. Now I'm going to stamp the skirt and I'm going to use the back side of this paper. And again, I chose this not because I love the combination, but because it's going to show you guys, you can see it easier. So I stamped her dress twice. And normally, another little tip, when I start a project, I stamp her clothes first because I'm starting with a clean stamp and I ink her dress, stamp it. I don't have to worry about all this being inked or all this being inked. And then I ink the entire girl to do on my skin tone paper. Now, a fun little thing that you can do with these watercolor pencils is you don't have to layer at all if you don't want to. You can, there's tons of sets of these in all different colors. And you can color in these folds of the dress, and where you see darkness in folds is up at the top of the waist, right? And then going down. And I just kind of shaded that in, and I'm going to do what I did with my skin and hair. I'm just going to blend it. I used a peach pen or pencil here. And I'm adding some shading. Just to, if I'm just using a single paper with no layering, it's just a little bit of shading there. If I want to layer my dress, this is how we're going to do it. We are going to, oh, and I want to show you. Here's the doll that I cut off all that excess because we were going to put the dress over it like this. And she has her little ruffle at the bottom, which I used a white Sharpie to just color in. So you could see a little bit of difference in that ruffle. So here's the back side. Don't need all that, cut it off, don't stamp it, save your paper. For this particular dress, what I'm going to do, now I cut out the entire doll. I feel like I'm going to lose you guys. What I'm going to do now is cut out the dress, and I'm going to cut out the ruffle. I'm going to just get rid of that ruffle. And I am going to cut it off of her sleeves too, because she has little ruffles at the sleeve. Ruffles cut, because I'm going to glue it onto the doll whose whole entire dress I cut out. And I'm going to take my white Sharpie and I'm going to color in the ruffles on my doll body. And there's a ton of white pens out there. Everyone will have their favorite. I love this one. It's a water-based Sharpie. They are hard to find. If you ask your local store to carry it like I did, they will. So her little ruffles are colored in. And she has a little dress cut out without ruffles, where that little bit of white is going to peek through. Now I'm going to cut out this skirt. And I'm going to do some layering. And yes, my big old clunky scissors, that's just what I'm comfortable with. People laugh, but that's okay. I'm going to take her skirt, just because we've got a little bit of time, and I'm going to shade some of this if the color is right. And yeah, I'm not sure which pieces of this skirt I'm going to cut out yet. So I'm just following my black lines of the folds on both sides. I'm going to cut this skirt apart, and I'm not quite sure which pieces I'm going to cut yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a little bit of shading to make it pop. The pencils that I'm using are the spring and fall colors, which has a really nice assortment of pinks in it. I'll get the different sets for certain colors that I really use a lot. And this one had a nice set of pink. Okay, so there's that. Let's get this paper out because it kind of is hard to see with it. So I've got my doll in her little dress, and I'm going to do some layering. I'm going to cut this skirt apart. Some of you know and some of you don't know, before I did these stamps, I did all this paper piecing with collage work on canvases. And and every fold of the dress would be a different paper, and pretty intricate in those days. So I have all these pieces and I need to decide how I want to construct this dress. And I usually do every other. So I just have to always figure out which way I want to do it. And I think I'll go ahead and do it. Maybe I can do it that way. Or I could do it this way. I think I'm going to do it this way. So now, this is what not to use. I forgot my glues today, so I found an Elmer's glue stick here. I love using glue sticks on the clothes. However, a good quality glue stick that you would buy in a scrapbook store, made by a scrapbooking company. These are made for kids. Throw them in their backpacks. The stuff does not stick that well. Nothing against the company, but it's just not a good product for what we're doing. The reason I like glue sticks is because I can get every corner of this piece. And I am not going to glue the bottoms because I'm going to show you another fun little trick that I did not invent, but I think it was, oops, that's the wrong piece, Jennifer Snyder that started doing this. And one of the reasons I like using glue sticks is because it gives you a few seconds of adjustment room. So if you get it in the wrong place, you can lift it up. It's not quite dry yet. So I didn't do the bottom of the dress, and you can either just leave it as is and you get a little bit of flare up there, or you can pop dot it down. And I'm just using these pop dots. Are really hard to get off, but they work. You can put your pop dot at the very end of that and it will lift up that bottom part beautifully. So glue at the waist, pop dot at the bottom. And you get that nice lift and a little bit of added dimension. One thing I didn't do, I forgot. I ink edge almost everything I do, and I usually almost always use brown ink. I would have done all the edges of these little green ginghams, but I forgot. But it just adds a little more dimension, a little more pop. I like when the brown kind of bleeds into the paper because it adds kind of a vintagey touch. So her little dress is done, and I'm going to go ahead and glue it on. And again, one of the reasons I really like using a glue stick, because a lot of people poo-poo at glue sticks because they think of just cheap. It's because I can get up in here that I can't really do with any other glue. Got a little scrap of paper here. And I'm going to go ahead and glue her little dress on. Lift that up, get. And again, this glue gives me a little bit of time to really get that dress in the right place. So there's her little dress all put together. Another fun thing to do is you can take a scrap of paper when you guys see things, and I'm going to cut, when you see things that you know weren't on that stamp and you wonder where did it come from, here is a little pocket that I cut. And I'm going to really edge the ink the edge of this so it will pop out, and I'm going to put a little pocket on her skirt, and I'll put it maybe over that green so it stands out a little bit. Or if I had a third paper here, I may have done it in a completely different pattern, which I probably would have, because that's just how I do things. So there she is, completed. Layered, showed you different ways to cut, ways to save your paper when you're not not using, when your dress is covering up most of the stamp. Remember, you can save your paper. Sorry, I just blanked out. And cutting tools, pop dots, glue, coloring. Did I leave anything else out? I'm looking at all my supplies here. I think I got everything in. Oh, there's accessory pieces, you guys, too, just so you know. I get a lot of questions, so I'm going to explain to you guys. I'm coloring in some little cheeks here. Here's the Camille doll. She is really dirty. She is what I call a woman doll. She has a small head. She has boobs. She has a skinny waist. She is a woman. Candie is what I call more of like a little tween. She does not have boobs. She has a bigger head. She has a bigger waist. So she's a young girl. And then I have the little tiny ones, which I made two that are about half the size of her, that are little toddler size girls, Adira and Little Girl. So there's 3 different age groups of these stamps. So I get a lot of questions with the hats. Which dolls do the hats fit? And the hats, they're called hats 1 and hats 2. They came with a stocking cap, a witch's hat, a crown, all kinds of different hats. They fit these girls here. There was a very early set of accessories, which I think had a couple of hats and some handbags, and they were meant for this. When we started the Prima dolls, we started out with the women, had no idea if these would sell or not. So as things evolved, because they did sell, there became different age groups, different sizes, and what have you. So that's the difference when you are shopping when you're buying accessory pieces, that's the difference. If you ask me what something goes to, and I say it goes to a woman doll, it's these. If it goes with I always call it a tween. I don't want to say little girl because there's the little girls. They go with these. Had we known in the beginning that it would evolve into all this, we probably would have packaged things differently, but who knew? Who knew? I never thought in 100 years people would buy these and be playing paper dolls. So there you have it. We also have the really small 4-inch stamps that come with all the sayings and little accessories that are specifically made for cards. And they come in a set. So I think that that kind of helps. There's the boys are all boys. They kind of match these. There's one man. And then there is a dog. And there's the baby, which we came out with last summer with all the little baby clothes. So I think we've hit most of the age groups. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, you can, yes, the baby is scaled to go with the woman doll. So yeah, that was a weird decision I had to make. I didn't know if I should make it bigger or if I should make it fit with these. I didn't know what the best way to go with that. So we made it small. So anything else, you guys? Any other questions? I think that wraps all the basics up that I can think of. There is a YouTube video that we did on a live with Prima regarding the watercolors. It gets a little more in depth, and regarding alcohol ink markers, which gets in a little more depth. With alcohol ink markers, whether you use a Copic or any of the brands out there, I'm not a Copic artist, never probably will be, but I do like them to edge my little shadows because they're really fast and they're really easy. So that's how I use Copics, and I don't really get into all of the shading of the hair and everything because A, I'm not that good at it. B, I don't have a lot of time to invest in it. But I think these dolls are so small that you don't really have to be a great artist to do their hair, to do their shoes. You just need to just have that little hint of color to know that it is in fact hair and shoes. Grandparent dolls. You guys are too funny. Now you know, well, no, that wouldn't work. Never mind. I don't know if I want to do grandparent dolls, and one of the reasons is because when I do, honestly, I mean, this is honest, when I draw my stuff, I don't draw around a purpose for them. I draw because I like to draw. I draw fun dresses. I see this dress. I would never wear this dress. A, I wouldn't fit into it. B, I'm too old for a halter dress without getting Spanx and a fancy bra and blah, 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 blah. I draw mostly out of fantasy. I think every girl likes to play dress up, whether you are 2 years old or you're 90 years old. We like playing dress up. We like thinking of new designs and new dresses, but they're not something that we would necessarily wear. I use a lot of ruffles in my drawings. I use a lot of, when I'm doing my collages, I use lace. They're pretty extravagant because it's all kind of a fantasy world. When I design my products, it's coming from my heart. It's not coming out of a purpose to make money. So probably grandparents aren't a thing in my future. I never say never, because I said never on the guys, but I don't want to draw a grandparent because I don't want to look like a grandparent, even though I am old enough to be a grandparent a million times over. So that's where my drawings come from. It's just kind of out of that little girl dress up fantasy world. And so that's that. And I guess that's it, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for stopping in, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye, everybody.